Is the prophecy about Pope Francis finally being fulfilled? What if the Vatican has been hiding a secret signal that this is the end? For centuries, warnings have gone ignored, until now. Throughout history, whispers of a prophecy have echoed within the hallowed halls of the Vatican. A prophecy that speaks of the final pope, a shepherd who would lead the Church through unprecedented trials. Could it be that this prophecy is unfolding before our very eyes with Pope Francis? Some prophecies unfold so gradually that by the time we recognize them, it's already too late. What chilling event did the ancients foresee that matches today's chaos? And what if that event has already begun, right under our noses? Join us as we delve into the mysteries surrounding Pope Francis and explore whether the ancient prophecy is being fulfilled in our lifetime. What if the next clue is about to drop right in front of us? To understand the speculation surrounding Pope Francis and the fulfillment of ancient prophecies, we must journey back to the 12th century and explore the enigmatic prophecy of the popes. Did a medieval saint really see our modern world in a vision? Or something far darker? What if what he saw was so terrifying that even the Church tried to erase it? This prophecy, attributed to Saint Malachy, the Archbishop of Armagh, consists of 112 short, cryptic Latin phrases. Each phrase is believed to correspond to a specific pope, starting with Pope Celestine II, who ascended to the papacy in 1143. But what if the phrases hide a code we've only just begun to crack? If we decode the final warning, will we be prepared for what's coming? Saint Malachy, born in 1094, was renowned for his piety and dedication to church reform. Legend has it that during a pilgrimage to Rome, he received a vision detailing the lineage of future popes, culminating in the end times. The last entry in the prophecy is particularly intriguing. It refers to a pope identified as Peter the Roman, whose reign would precede the destruction of Rome and the Last Judgment. This ominous prediction has fueled centuries of speculation and interpretation. Whether authentic or not, the prophecy of the popes has undeniably influenced the collective imagination, especially during times of papal transition or global uncertainty. But could it actually be steering us toward an unavoidable fate? Or is there still one last chance to change what's coming? Fast forward to 2013, when Cardinal Jorge Mario Bergoglio was elected as Pope Francis. His papacy has reignited discussions about the prophecy, particularly concerning the final prediction of Peter the Roman. Did his election trigger a countdown we can't stop? And if so, how much time do we have left? Pope Francis chose his papal name in honor of Saint Francis of Assisi, whose birth name was Giovanni di Pietro di Bernardone. The inclusion of Pietro, or Peter, has led some to draw connections to the prophecy's final pope. However, Pope Francis hails from Argentina, not Rome. This raises questions about the applicability of the Peter the Roman moniker to his papacy. It's essential to approach such prophecies with caution. While intriguing, they should not overshadow the tangible actions. As with many prophecies, the true meaning remains shrouded in mystery, inviting both skepticism and belief. The story of Peter the Roman serves as a reminder of our enduring quest to understand the divine plan. The world has witnessed significant upheavals during Pope Francis's papacy. From environmental crises to global health emergencies, these challenges have tested the resilience of humanity and the Church. Are these disasters the great tribulations foretold, or just the beginning? And if they are only the beginning, what horrors come next? Recently, Pope Francis faced serious health challenges, including a prolonged battle with double pneumonia. At 88 years old, his hospitalization sparked widespread concern among the faithful and ignited rumors about his potential resignation. Is his illness a sign that the prophecy's endgame is near? Or is it the final test before something far more shocking? On February 14, 2025, Pope Francis was admitted to Rome's Gemelli Hospital with symptoms of bronchitis, which escalated into a complex clinical condition, including pneumonia in both lungs. His condition was critical, requiring oxygen therapy and mechanical ventilation. Pope Francis is showing significant signs of improvement in his battle against life-threatening pneumonia, the Vatican reported. Despite requiring ongoing hospital treatment, the 88-year-old pontiff's condition has stabilized. In his vision, St. Malachy saw a line of 112 popes stretching into the future. Each one was described with a cryptic phrase, a short prophecy that seemed to capture their identity, reign, or influence. Some were mysterious. Some were terrifyingly accurate. But what if one prophecy was so precise that it changed everything? We're about to examine the terrifying accuracy of this prophecy, down to its final pope. And the last pope on his list? That would be Pope Francis. According to the Associated Press, Pope Francis has consistently acknowledged and discussed his health issues, aging, and the inevitability of death. Despite his hospitalization, he has no current plans to resign, as he maintains good health and many future projects. While the Pope's health is a matter of concern, it's essential to approach rumors of resignation with caution. Historically, popes have served until death, and Pope Francis himself has expressed his commitment to continue his ministry. Amidst the swirling rumors, the faithful gathered in St. Peter's Square, offering prayers and support for Pope Francis, demonstrating their unwavering faith and hope for his recovery. Whether or not Pope Francis is the fulfillment of an ancient prophecy remains a topic of debate. If this is truly a warning, then the consequences of ignoring it are unimaginable. If there was ever a moment to pay attention, it's now. Because whether you believe the prophecy or not, what happens next could change everything. For some, the prophecy sparks fear. For others, curiosity. And for many, hope. Prophecy has always played a role in shaping human perception of the future. But what we must ask ourselves is this: are we interpreting these prophecies correctly? Are we so focused on predicting the end that we forget to live by the principles our faith teaches? Or are we missing the one clue that ties it all together? And when we finally see it, will it be too late? Throughout history, every era has had its own final pope theories. Every time the world has faced turmoil, believers have looked for signs. St. Malachy's final prophecy didn't just name a pope. It described the times that Pope would live in. It spoke of many tribulations and the destruction of the seven-hilled city, Rome, culminating in the Last Judgment. Now that Pope Francis is on the scene and widely considered to match the last pope on the list, people naturally start examining the state of the world through a prophetic lens. Are we experiencing many tribulations during Francis's reign? In some ways, the world of the 2010s and 2020s has indeed been turbulent. Pope Francis has navigated the Church through crises that could be seen as fulfilling that ominous description. Under his papacy, we have seen a wave of challenges. Wars and conflicts flaring in various regions, even internal turmoil within the Church, with scandals and divisions. But what happens when the last name on the list is fulfilled? In that Vatican prophecy, The final pope will reign during great tribulations. The seven-hilled city, Rome, will be destroyed. And after that, judgment. Could this prophecy be foretelling the fall of the Vatican? A collapse of the Church's power? A great persecution against Christians? Or could it mean something even greater? Some also thought of Malachy's words, tribulations. The city of seven hills will be destroyed. Rome wasn't destroyed, but it was deserted due to a plague-like illness, if only temporarily. It made people wonder, how far are we from the prophesied tribulations? Are we in them already? Natural disasters, political upheavals, a secularizing culture. Pope Francis has indeed been tending his flock amid many trials. For prophecy believers, each of these events is a potential puzzle piece of a divine plan. They watch the news and think, Francis is guiding us through tribulations, just like the prophecy said. They recall that the prophecy doesn't necessarily say how long Peter the Roman will reign or what exactly will happen, just that he will care for his sheep during hardships. Not everyone sees current events as doom, of course. Skeptics counter that the world has had tribulations in every era. They note, if you look for problems, you'll find them. The 1940s had World War II. Wasn't that tribulation? Yet the world didn't end then. That's true. Humanity has a habit of thinking its times are uniquely catastrophic. Nonetheless, there is an unmistakable sense for many that we're at a critical point in history. Even Pope Francis himself has spoken of feeling that we are in a change of epoch, facing unprecedented global challenges. And what about the prophecy's most dramatic element, the destruction of Rome and the final judgment? Here is where even the boldest prophecy enthusiasts tread carefully. The idea of the city of Rome being destroyed is terrifying. Some interpret this symbolically. Perhaps it means a spiritual collapse, or great suffering rather than literal fire and ruin. Others take it literally and worry about everything from war to natural disaster striking the Vatican. Still, others recall biblical teachings that even if such things come, believers should not lose hope. This part of the prophecy also ties into biblical end times speculation. They wonder if the dreadful judge in Malachy's prophecy is a reference to Christ's return in judgment. Yet, through all these swirling discussions, Pope Francis continues his ministry calmly. He speaks of hope, of caring for creation, of loving one another. In a way, his steady guidance is like a beacon in the storm. If he is Peter the Roman, he seems determined to be a good shepherd in the many tribulations, just as the prophecy said, but in the most positive sense. He often reminds people, do not be afraid. And in one general audience, he even joked, I am not an angel of doom. I am a man who laughs, cries, and has friends like you. Now, we stand at a crossroads of mystery and faith. The question remains hanging in the air. Is the prophecy about Pope Francis finally being fulfilled? On one hand, so many elements have lined up. Pope Francis is the successor to Benedict XVI, who was linked to Glory of the Olive. uscatholic.org. Francis is, by Malachy's reckoning, the 112th Pope, the last on the list. irishcentral.com. We have indeed seen significant tribulations during his tenure, and people have found ways, some clever, some perhaps too clever, to connect him to Peter the Roman. If this were the last chapter of a novel, it would feel like all the hints are converging to a climax. It's as if a cosmic clock is ticking down, and all eyes are on Pope Francis's every move, wondering if the final events will unfold as predicted. On the other hand, we have to remember that God's plans are bigger than any one private prophecy. The Christian faith does not rise or fall on St. Malachy's vision. Whether the prophecy is a heavenly warning or just an inventive historical footnote, the duty of Christians is the same: to stay faithful, do good, and be ready in heart for whenever God's timeline reaches its fulfillment. As Jesus taught, keep watch, because you do not know on what day your Lord will come. Matthew 24:42. In other words, even if we suspect we're in the final times, we should live rightly regardless. And if we aren't in the final times, living rightly is still exactly what we should do. It's powerful and thought-provoking to consider that we might be living in prophetic times. It reminds us of the early Christians who lived with expectation for Christ's return. But it's also humbling to realize many generations before us thought the same, only for history to continue onward. One day, one generation will be right. Is that our generation? We don't know for sure. What we do know is that Pope Francis, now well into his 80s, will not reign forever. If the Lord tarries and Pope Francis eventually passes away or resigns, the world will see a new conclave, a new pope. If that happens, it will answer our question in one way. It would mean Francis was not the last pope after all. And perhaps the prophecy was not to be taken literally. Or perhaps, as some interpretations allow, there could be other popes in between, and the prophecy's ordering was misunderstood. But what if Pope Francis is the last, as Malachy's list suggests? Does that mean the end of the world is at hand? Not necessarily in an instant flash, but it could signal a period of great trial for the Church and humanity, at the end of which God's final judgment comes. It's a somber thought, yet for believers it's not a fearful one in the ultimate sense, because the end of the world also means the beginning of a new, eternal world in Christian hope. Still, the transition, as depicted, is dire: persecution, destruction, judgment. No one would wish to live through that if they could avoid it. In our current moment, perhaps the wisest stance is a balanced one. We acknowledge the fascinating possibility that Malachy's prophecy aligned with Pope Francis's time. It's certainly an engaging narrative that has captured our imagination. We remain curious, watching events unfold with eyes of both faith and reason. But we also hold fast to the core message that only God knows the full story. We must not let any prophecy, authentic or not, drive us to despair or wild speculation. Instead, it should drive us to reflection and preparation. Are we living our lives in a way that, if the Lord came tomorrow, we would be ready? That might be the most important question of all. Where do we place our trust? Do we panic at the thought of the world's end? Or do we trust in the promises of Christ? Pope Francis himself, whether or not he is the last pope, would surely point us not to focus on him as a harbinger of doom, but to focus on Jesus and the gospel of hope. If this prophecy teaches us anything, perhaps it is to be vigilant and prayerful, but not fearful. Only God fully knows the destiny of Pope Francis and whether he is indeed Peter the Roman of Malachy's vision. As viewers and seekers, we're left with a mix of wonder and watchfulness. The prophecy has added a sense of drama to our times, but it's up to each of us how to respond. We can choose fear, or we can choose faith. We can get lost in end times theories, or we can hold on to the unchanging truths that guide our lives. In the end, whether or not the prophecy is finally being fulfilled, one truth remains: God is in control. If these are the last days, He will give us strength to persevere. If they are not, He will give us grace to improve our world for as long as time continues. Pope Francis often asks people to pray for him. Perhaps that is the best we can do. pray for Pope Francis, that if he is the last pope or one of many more to come, he may fulfill God's purpose for his life. And pray for ourselves, that we might live not in anxiety, but in hopeful readiness. Right now, there are 3 prophecies that we are looking ahead to. What are those 3 prophecies, and which one is closest to coming true?